Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. It's Kathy Colaiacovo with the Marketing Your Private Practice podcast. And today we're doing one of our free marketing reviews. And I have in my virtual studio here on Riverside, Juliana Sherriff. Now, Jules, I kind of know fairly well because she has spent the last year in my Thrive Marketing Academy. And today she wanted to get a review done of one of her articles that she's using in her newsletter and on her blog. Now, to give you a quick introduction of her, Jules is the creator and author of several self-care and wellness journals. You can find her website at juleswellnessjournals.com. And what she does and what she has, and I have one of her journals too, is she creates wellness-based, quality-made journals that are for individuals, couples, children, and she has a variety of these on there. And I believe, Jules, you also have a new one coming out in the next year or so, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited to have you here because it's nice to get some extra time with the folks that are finishing the program because I always find it's a sad time of year. Now, this time I actually have several people leaving all at once and you're all moving on and graduating and moving on to greener pastures with a lot of knowledge that you've learned, I think, I hope in the past year. That was my goal.
I've learned a lot.
That is the whole purpose of me running the Thrive Marketing Academy. So I'm glad to hear that. But it is nice to get a little extra time with you here as we finish off. Mm-hmm. And who knows, you may be back into the Thrive coaching circle a little later on to continue on working with me.
Absolutely.
Before we dive in, I do want to remind everybody, and I'm going to get Jules to introduce herself a little bit more and tell us a bit more about her business and what kind of ideal clients she has. But I want to remind everybody listening in that these marketing reviews that I offer through the podcast are free and open to everyone. It is a way for you to get some help and some strategy and business coaching, marketing strategy for business and practice owners who are maybe having a roadblock that's holding you back from growing your business, something that's stopping you with your marketing that's just confusing, or just looking to get a little clarity, which is, I think, what we're doing here today with your article. Correct, Jules?
Yes.
You applied for one of the reviews and you gave me an article that we're going to take a look at that I actually haven't seen before just now because it wasn't sent in to me ahead of time, which is fine. No big deal.
Oops.
But that's okay. Before we dive into it though, why don't you tell the audience and our listeners here a little bit more about what your journals are and what your business is and give us a snapshot of your ideal client.
I'm Jules, as Kathy introduced me, and I'm the creator of Jules Wellness Journals. I make premium guided mental health journals for busy midlife women just like us who are trying to juggle work, family, and everything in between and trying to do all of the things. My journals are a simple way for women to let go of stress, to clear the mind and reconnect with themselves. And even on the busiest days, being able to grab your journal, sit down, take a deep breath, and write about how you're feeling both emotionally and physically, which is a more somatic way of healing. It's an accessible way for women to be able to find themselves back in the present moment and to feel a lot more grounded. And I needed that. So I am my avatar. And I'm very, very passionate about this mental health journal in particular. And as you mentioned, I am creating another journal in the same category that's going to be about letting go of fears.
With your content that you create and your marketing that you do, what is the big goal that you're trying to do? I assume we're going to just always assume that it's to get more people to buy the journals. I mean, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. I'm a new entrepreneur. I launched a year ago, November. So I became, some would call me, because of my age, a seniorpreneur, which I actually love that tag.
That's a great term.
I love it. I love it. I'm new at this. I'm brand new at being an entrepreneur, and I'm learning how to market my business. And I sell primarily on Amazon right now, but I would love to get into wholesale. And so the stuff I've learned from your program and all of that is going to help me improve my sales and get the word out.
Part of your content that you put into newsletter content or blog content on your website is to get those ideal clients who would benefit from buying one of your journals to come to your website and figure out where they can purchase them.
Absolutely. Yes.
As we move into this, I do have a copy of Jules' article, and she has an article that looks a little different for what she sent through or is sending through her email system, her newsletter. And then there's a shorter version, a different version, but the same content, the same lessons, the same goal of the content is also on your website as a blog post, correct?
Yes, yes.
And just for folks listening in, she has done very well as a student because that is what I teach people, the Thrive Marketing Method. And with that method, what people tend to do, and I've never asked you this, Jules, but I will as we talk about this. The goal of the method is you create one article, your anchor piece of content. That article goes out on your blog post with some special extra formatting that you do when you post and publish a blog and content on your website. Then you have the same article, but you might manipulate it a little. You might change it up a little for sending it out as a newsletter. And then what you do with the content, because you've still created it, you pull pieces of that out and use it in your marketing on social media. Some of it will be educational, some of it will be sales. So you might try to get people to come and read the whole article on the blog, on the website. And the idea is you're creating one piece of content, but you're using it in multiple ways to keep the content out there, to build your digital footprint. The goal of this is always to make sure the content is relative to your main keywords, to topics that you write about, things that people come to you for, problems that you can solve and help people with. If we were here and Jules was writing about how to wear the best clothing to go out for a date night, we would have a problem. Her content is definitely related to her journals and that client she's looking for.
Yes, absolutely.
With this article, that's what you've done. You've got an article that it's going out in your email, in your newsletter to the people that have signed up and asked you to send them email and content. But it's also on your website for people to visit and come to. But also, as everybody knows, if you've been listening to my podcast at all, if you've taken my courses, downloaded any of my freebies, another big job, and sometimes the bigger job of the content on your website, is to make sure the search engines can find you and know that you have content that people are looking for when they're searching online. And so they're looking for content they can say to someone searching online, hey, there's a good answer for you over here. And so that's why she's also got this article on her website.
And that's an area that I definitely need more help.
Hopefully this review will give you some tips on how to ensure that you're putting these articles out there in both places the best that you can to get the most out of what you're doing.
Okay.
I am going to look at the blog one first because for me, that's the more important one. And it is the one that you want to think about a little differently in the way that you want to think about it from the point of view of making sure that search engines understand what it's about, that you've got keyword-rich content in it, that you've got keywords in it, that you've formatted it well so that if someone does come to the website, and you can be sending people there too, okay, or if they're finding it themselves, that it's hitting all the spots that it needs to hit so that it helps people reading it know what to do next. And then it helps the search engines understand what the content is so they can send people to it as an answer to their online searches.
Okay.
The article on your blog is titled How to Find Calm During the Holiday Rush, and that's what you've put as the title there. And for those that do want to check, this actually is live on Jules' website. We are at the end of December, mid-December here, so it is one that she's got up there live. If you want to come back and take a peek at it and look at it, I will often say that by the time you hear this podcast on wherever you're listening to your podcast app, you're probably going to see a different version of what we're talking about here on the website, because that is typically what happens. But you can find it on juleswellnessjournals.com. I'll have a link to her website in the show notes. In here, I have a checklist I'm always looking to refer to when I do my own blogs and when I'm looking at ones for students. It is something that I give away in the content in the academy. And so there's 10 main things I'm always looking for. Some of them are more important than the others. These are intended to make sure that you're helping with your search engine visibility and that people reading it know what to do and how to take action. Recently, I've done several episodes on the About page on a website, which is a very underestimated page that people don't think about as very important. And we talked a lot about in there of putting people on a journey as you're having them come to your website and making sure the content you put on there takes them on a journey from knowing it is information that will help them, knowing that they're going to get something out of it by reading it, but also making sure that you do things like send them to the next place where they can get some more help or get more information. Blogs are no different. They still need to make sure that they've got these same elements. But when we look at these, we're looking for keyword-rich titles. That's number one. We're looking for a keyword-rich subtitle. It is very good to have a hook and an intro to the article. So the whole point of that is to make sure that if they're coming to it, seeing it, skimming it, that the hook will help them understand, oh, this could help me. And so the goal is to get them to read more from that. We're looking for keywords in the content. I'm also looking for images or other visual effects or formatting that will help break up the text that you have. So it's not just an entire blog of content only, because people will have a harder time skimming that. Or harder time reading it because they'll be skimming, and you want to make sure that you're giving them some breaks so that they can take in the information better. We're also looking for calls to action. Anytime you have a blog on your website or a website page, you don't want people to finish the page and just, oh, okay, that's it, we're done. We want them to do something. With a blog in particular, then I'm also looking for a recap or a wrap up, kind of what I call the moral of the story is and what they can do next. And then there's some technical elements that we want here. So most website platforms out there, whether it's WordPress, well, they definitely have it. Squarespace, Wix, those are common ones I have with folks in my programs. Those ones also have ways that you can punch in and add an SEO title, a description, and a keyword. Blogging platforms also have blog categories and tags. And these are all particular elements that help the search engines really understand what the content is. As we're talking about that one, which is number 9 on the list, Jules, is that something on your blog that you're putting into them?
As far as I know, I think so.
Okay, I'm going to check that here in a second.
Okay.
And then the other option, which is more of an optional one these days, I don't find it happens as much as it used to happen, but having options where people could share that online, or making sure you've optimized it so that if it is shared online, it's picking up the right information. That is my 10-point checklist, and I will put a list of those items into this episode in the show notes. But I want you all to know what that is, because as I'm going through this article, I'm going to be looking for that on what Jules has in here. The title that we have, How to Find Calm During the Holiday Rush. That does speak to people for sure. There might be a way that we can improve that, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. But it does speak to, you talk about during the holiday rush, finding the calm. So all of what you do is included in there, which is good. Then you have a subtitle, Why the Holidays Can Be Overwhelming. Now, that as a subtitle, You've got it in there, so it's there. Is it an ideal subtitle? Does it help with the hook and the intro to get people to read more? That we could probably improve, because why the holidays can be overwhelming is you explaining what the problem is that you're going to talk about and what you're going to help them with. So I would encourage a bit of a fix on that, so that people, when they read those words, what they're going to think is, why the holidays can be overwhelming. Yeah, they are overwhelming. I don't know what to do about it. And I know they are. It's not anything that is triggering them to think, oh, I want to read more about this.
Okay.
How to find calm during the holiday rush definitely is something that will catch attention if someone is all stressed out and holidays and everything going on. But then for me, why the holidays can be overwhelming is just a bit more of a, you're going to overwhelm me a little more by asking me that. I kind of wanted to know how I find the calm.
Right.
What I would do and change with this one would be something to the effect for this subtitle, and a subtitle for everybody that's listening, whether you pointedly put it on or it happens within your website, ideally you want that to be in what we call an H2 format, a heading 2, just because it's part of how the search engines read the content and it helps them understand what's on there. So in this case, to really capture the attention and keep them reading, I would probably put in something like, it can be overwhelming, but there are ways, simple ways that you can reduce that stress. Then they're looking at it and thinking, oh, she's going to give me some tips on that. Yes, I want to keep on reading. Do you see the difference between what you have and what we're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep.
And then you do have a nice intro. The holiday season was filled with joy. It can be overwhelming between gift shopping and blah, 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 blah. You've got all of that. Here are some suggestions on how to manage holiday stress while embracing rest and mindfulness. That is a great line, and it is a great intro, and it gets them in there. So you've kind of got the subtitle, the hook, the intro all in that. But what I would recommend is that for formatting and flow of this, I would put that line of, here are some suggestions on how to manage holiday stress, a little bit lower, like put a hard enter in there. And I would probably bold it so that you make it stand out, so that as they're skimming, they see, oh, she's definitely got suggestions on how to manage holiday stress. Just keeps people reading and moving down. Then you've got 5 ways to slow down and pause in the chaos. With that, you've got very pointed steps that you're saying are going to help people understand and know how they can slow down and pause in the chaos. What I probably would want to do here is relate it back to the title, which said find calm during the holiday rush.
Okay.
Part of this you could sort of add into the intro, maybe, that these steps will help you slow down and pause so that you can find that calm.
Okay.
At this point, though, what I would do is, your title of this is how to find calm during the holiday rush. And now you've got 5 ways for me to do that. I would, in that area, title that list, because she's got a bullet point list of 5 things. I would call that 5 easy ways to find calm during the holiday rush, so that you just tie it back into that.
Yeah, sure. No, that's good.
And then you've got your list. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things in here. You've got a title for each one, and then a bullet point of 2 or 3 things on how to do this. What I would recommend here, the bullet list is great. Formatting is great like that, because when you make a list, it helps people flow through the reading. But you have the title of each one as the same size as the text in the bullet point list. What I would do is put a space between your 5 ways title. And then I would, as you list each item out in the list, make that name of the item. So number 1, prioritize rest, bold it, or make it a little bigger font if you can, but do something to make it stand out. So then you would have a list that would have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one's going to have a bullet, but the title of before each bullet is bold. So again, that helps people flow down and read on the page. They may not read the 3 bullet points that you have, but they will get the gist of what you're trying to tell them, whether they read it or not, because you've got that bold thing there. So create a no list. They'll see that. If they want to know what it is, they're going to read the bullet points. If they want to continue just to skim, they're still going to understand you were teaching them to create a no list. They just don't have the details on it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense.
And then she has a lovely picture of her journal, somebody writing in the journal. And she's got a picture of that because part of her goal with this is to bring more awareness to the fact that she has her Breathe journal and that it is out there and it is for sale. So the image is there. Now, if you could get, it's a little not, like it's not really clear, Jules, that it's actually your, I know it is because I have a copy of it. But if you could have that picture where it's a little more clarity on the actual open journal, that would be good too.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's hiding the actual words that are written on there. So it is good in that way. Then you've got another kind of subtitle here, Embrace Rest This Holiday Season to Reduce Stress and Anxiety. This is kind of you doing the recap of this. But you've positioned that as more of a title. What I would do here to keep this flowing with the article is those 5 simple steps that I've just shared with you will help you embrace rest this holiday season so that you can reduce the stress and anxiety you're experiencing. Instead of making it like a salesy title, relate it back to what you told them. Make it more of a recap, a moral of the story, and what they should do next.
Okay.
Then you've had a little, a little inspiring note there. And then we have at the end the call to action that I'm looking for. If you want some help staying mindful, my guided journal Breathe offers simple prompts that will help you find the calm in the chaos. Get your copy here. Now, I would probably rephrase that whole call to action paragraph. It sounds a little salesy, slicky kind of wording.
Okay.
This is where everybody has to sort of get into your mode of say it the way you would say it, write it the way you would say it to someone face to face, right? Hey, Jules, if you read through this list and you think you need a little more help than what's in the list and you want to practice putting it into play in life, why not grab a copy of my guided journal, Breathe? It offers simple prompts that will help you find the calm in the chaos and a way for you to follow these 5 steps and help you reduce that stress and anxiety during this holiday season and any other time of the year. You can click here if you want to learn more about the journal and buy your own copy. So it's just more of a real life person-to-person way of saying the call to action.
Sounds better.
That would be a good way to do it. Now, one of the tips with images. So images you want to have in there. There's some technical stuff that I'm not going to get into it today about what to do, but I do want to say for you in this image here, people often don't understand what an image can do and how it can help your visibility online. With an image, when you're putting an image on there, and you do have this, you've got your what we call your alt text. So when you uploaded the image, you did put some alternative text on it so that it, number one, it helps with accessibility, but it's also helping the search engines understand what this image is about on the website and how, what the content is about. But that image is a picture of your journal, and it should also have a link under it that takes people to the page on your website or to Amazon, wherever they can buy the journal as well.
Right.
An image like that has a real purpose. This is a picture of something you actually sell. Don't just put it in as an image that just sits there. Use it pointedly as an image that if somebody clicks it, they'll go to the book page or the journal page where they can learn how to buy that.
Okay, makes sense.
And I would do that because you have a shop page on your website, which has several of your books. The Breathe 90-Day Mental Health Journal is at the very top, so it is very easy to find there. But if it was mixed within a list of them on that page and you had another page that was all on its own, that's where I would send them from an image like that.
Okay.
For the blog, there's a few things to fix up. You're doing really well with it. You do have, I
have a good teacher.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Within here, what I'm always looking for as well is to make sure you've added the SEO elements that we're looking for. So I can kind of look, anybody can, and look on the back end to see what is been entered as your SEO title and your description, which are very big. These are what people will tend to see in an online search. You have a title of How to Find Calm During the Holiday Rush - Jules Wellness Journals. That tells me you probably didn't pointedly enter the SEO, that it's probably just pulling up a code of the title and the site title, which is why your business name is there. You don't necessarily need the site title in there. And I always recommend pointedly writing in a specific under 70 character, if you can, title. You had to find calm during the holiday rush on its own. You could just do that right there. Adding the Jules Wellness Journals makes it a little bit longer, but it's more of a, if you can get to, so you want to go back to our module in the Academy on blog content and formatting it and SEO, and just pay a little more attention to that lesson so that you understand how to put those titles in there. Because every blog post should have its own unique title, same as every page. And then your description that you have is feeling overwhelmed during the holiday season. Discover simple mindfulness tips and self-care strategies to manage holiday stress, find calm and embrace rest. Stay grounded and enjoy this season with ease. Now, that is not the content that you have on there. So I know that it looks like you probably pointedly put the description in, and it's a good description. If somebody did a search online and saw the name of your website and the title and that description, they would know if they click it, they're going to discover some mindfulness tips and strategies to help them. That is a good spot that you've got there. Questions on that?
Nope. Follow me.
The last thing that I'm going to bring up here is your blog category. On your website, and it isn't the same on every website, okay, but on your website, it does show the categories that you've put up or the tags for your website. And in this case, we're seeing the categories: anxiety, journaling, mental health awareness, mindfulness, mindfulness practices, self-care, somatic healing, and uncategorized. Uncategorized is a standard category that's on every WordPress website, and everybody tends to leave it there and leave it as a category on there. What I recommend you do is, I always recommend go into that category. You can go on a WordPress site and you can edit the name of uncategorized and turn it into a very specific keyword rich category for you and start using it as that.
Okay. I didn't even realize that.
Most people don't. But by doing that, the big thing about it, Jules, is that if you deleted it or took it out or something, if you have blogs that only had that as a category, which is also very common, then that would change how things look on the back end of your website. But if you have all sorts of blog posts with that on it, which is typical when I find these, if you just change and edit the category name, what will happen is it will update on everything else. Oh. Now, there's some other technical aspects to this, because you're okay because your URLs on your blogs do not include the category name or the date. It is just simply Jules Wellness Journals and the title of the blog post. That's a setup that you have that can be very different and unique for each type of website, depending on the back end and the setup and what's set in place with the theme or the base template. Mm-hmm. If categories was in your URLs, and so they would have said at some point, if they were a primary category, it would have said juleswellnessjournals.com/uncategorized/how to find calm. Yeah.
Oh.
But you don't. So it's good. You're safe. However, there are probably people out there listening that may be the format on their website. What that means is, if you just go and do what I said, change uncategorized to wellness journals, it changes all of the links on all of those blog posts if that was the only one there. You have to know what you're doing to make that change. Don't just rush out there and change it. You may need to have a conversation with your web person on what happens if you change a category name to the function of your blog post URLs. So don't just do it. Ask some questions about it. That's something that happens a lot when people make new updates, do new websites. You have to remember that if you have pages on your website, and I've run into this about 3 times this year with people that had someone build a new website for them or update it, they changed the structure of their permalinks, which means they changed the structure of the URLs and how they show on their website. And for each one of them, it tanked their website traffic, because now all these new website URLs were there, but everything in the history of the search engines where people got traffic and results from, they would click and get a 404 error page.
Oh, no.
Changing URLs and structure of URLs on a website in blog posts is very critical to make sure you know what you're doing. So for you, you can do it, Jules, because it's not set up on your URLs, on your permalinks.
Nice to hear.
Yes. And it's a good way to set it up. In that aspect, this article is done. We're good with that. It's all set up. It's a good one.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions on the blog?
No, your suggestions are gold. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
When we look at this article, the way you're going to send it out in the newsletter, and so I do have a copy of what that looks like, it's very similar in the way that you've put it up. The blog is shrunk a little more on content, I'll be honest. So for instance, on the blog, you said one of the ways to slow down was 1, prioritize rest. In your newsletter article, you have 1, sleep, the ultimate reset. So you are changing these a lot. Like what you've done with this particular article is changed it a lot more than I would recommend to people.
Oh, okay.
Like you have your category number 2, you don't have to be everything to anyone. On the blog, it is set realistic expectations. Your article with a lot more details in the newsletter is actually probably a more keyword-rich specific content to put on the website than hide in your newsletter and send only to the people on your email list.
Oh, okay.
Another one as an example. And you also, these literally could be 2 very different articles too, because you've got a very different play to them. Number 3, nature, a natural recharge for mental health versus creating a no list or practice mindfulness. To me, I see these as 2 very different articles because you have even the tips that you've got at them in Jules, like sleep, the ultimate reset. Good sleep isn't just nice, it's necessary. Take this as permission to go to bed 30 minutes earlier, take naps, create a calming nighttime ritual. Hello, journaling. I love that. Remind yourself that rest fuels everything else. On the other one that you put on the blog, give your permission to take breaks. It will lower your stress. Take a nap, even a 10-minute pause. Those are so different. So to me, you've got 2 very different articles. And I would adjust them a little so that they aren't similar. This one is specific to the holidays. You've got it in there. You might want to have some holiday information in it, but they are very different. So you've kind of strayed from my Thrive marketing method in that you've made very different ones. Because normally what I would tell you to change with the article that you're going to send in the newsletter is add a little more personal touch to it at the beginning, but the rest of it can be the same.
Oh, okay.
If it's this different, you've got 2 pieces of content here, not 1.
Okay.
And if you are going to offer people something extra through a newsletter or try doing, because you can do paid newsletters now where people pay you to get that, then you could make it very different like this and have it be what you send through here. But again, you've got more specific content in that newsletter article and specific keyword-rich content that if you had it on the website, it would help you a little more than the more generic prioritize rest, set realistic expectations, create a no list versus, sleep is the ultimate reset. And this one, to be honest, when I look at the newsletter one, I feel like it does focus a lot more on the rest part of it. Feel like those 5 topics are more how you can bring more rest time into your life to help you ease anxiety and reduce stress and feel more like yourself. So you could put it into play in that way as the topic for this one. But they are very different articles. And the content is not very similar at all. Even your way of doing the call to action in the newsletter, your well-being matters. If you're stretched too thin, let your journal be your safe space to rest and reset. You're talking very pointedly about rest here. It's not the same. Like you said, it was the same article. You changed it a bit. You wrote 2 articles here.
Okay.
So I wouldn't use them at the same time because there's a bit of commonality, but this one could be one that you use at the end of January when everybody's, or at another time of the year when things are stressful and you want to, get them back into a peace place and how journaling can help them with that.
Okay.
The other thing that I would change in this. So there's two other kickers that you want to change when you take an article and put it in a newsletter. One is the subject line. It is not your blog title and should never be your blog title. And number two is something Jules learned here earlier before we hit record on having a second preview line or a second line that shows up in your newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, the subject line. This subject line, when you send out a newsletter, you don't necessarily want to give away everything you're going to teach them in the content. Okay? Subject lines are what make people decide they're going to click and open and read the newsletter. If you tell them exactly what's there, people will often make a judgment call and like, no, I don't need that right now, and archive or delete it.
Right.
You want your subject lines to invoke curiosity or some sort of feeling of, oh, I need to know that, so that people will click. Yours that you have on this one is overwhelmed, 5 simple ways to reclaim your energy today. That could probably work for what you're looking to do here. But at the same time, if somebody doesn't feel like they're resonating with overwhelmed, it may not fit them.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's still, having said that, I still think it's a good line there. Your second line, your preview line, which she only discovered when I asked her what it was and she didn't know it was there.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And I don't get into that specific on my training. But if you have an email system like MailChimp or Kit, formerly called ConvertKit, I think even MailerLite do them. A lot of them do them. Aweber, ActiveCampaign. They often have a spot for this second line or preview line. That line is what shows up in people's inboxes as after the subject line. It doesn't show up in everyone's, but it can be a few words that you add in that make that first line make a little more sense and help them click in more and read a little bit more. If people have an image at the top, sometimes you'll see, the subject line and then the words image, because they just have alt text on their header image that says image. Using this preview line can be very helpful. I do it a lot with reminders. Jules, you've seen them all the time. You probably just don't know it. You'll get a reminder for the Thrive Marketing Academy. Reminder, our group coaching call is today. The second preview line will say December 19th at 3 p.m. Atlantic time. So it adds more context in. Not everybody is going to see it. So it can't be a big part of what people need to know to open it. It just needs to be a supportive, something that's holding that up and just giving a little more of a push if somebody does see it in their inbox. Mm-hmm. I do recommend that you use that for something like this. And on this one, you had a bit of a title once people opened up the newsletter. So you could put something in like overwhelmed, 5 simple ways. Again, you're kind of salesy there. Here's some simple ways to reclaim your energy today. And then on the second preview line, you could put something like 5 simple steps or something like that. So the 5 simple steps doesn't need to be there. People would still understand it, but it could help them understand and click in a little bit more.
Okay.
That's what I would change there. The article is good. You've still got some information. You've got a bit of a personal stuff at the top. You had a call to action in there, all of that. So it's good, but you had told me this was one article you put up in 2 ways, but you didn't. You've written 2 articles, if you ask me.
That's the learning curve.
It's a learning curve, but hey, now you've got an article ready for another time, right?
That's right. I could pull down the blog and do it at another time.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
Exactly.
Do that. No, that's
so,
exciting.
well, the blog is a holiday blog and it's a holiday season. So leave that there. What you want to do to reuse this is the blog that you have is going to go as a newsletter in the future. And the newsletter you, I think, may have sent already should go as a blog at some point in the future. So you're going to crisscross them. So,
I love it. Love it.
All right. Any other questions on that feedback on those and how to improve them?
No, this has been great. This information's been gold and I love it. Yeah.
Excellent. I do want to say thank you for coming on here, opening up, letting us talk about your articles and your content that you've written, and letting me share some ways that other people can also learn to optimize their own blogs and newsletters and those articles. And hopefully people really understand that you don't have to create a ton of content. And if you are somebody, what I often find is people do what you've done here, Jules, is kind of like take that one piece and really you've made more than you need to. The other thing that people will tend to do is write all this great captions and content for social media and never use it on their website. And my rule of thumb is if you have one sentence, maybe two, you have a tweet out there for those who still use the old X thing. Maybe nowadays you can say you have a thread. If you have 3 or 4 sentences, that's typically a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. If you have more to say in your caption that becomes a couple paragraphs, you can probably add a bit more to that and it can become a blog or a newsletter article too. So stop leaving your brilliance out there online in captions on social media posts that often, get seen, have their traction today and then die off later on. Instead, you could be taking that, putting it on your website and having it live there longer and helping you over time get more visibility to your website. That's what I want to make sure everybody understands about putting content on their websites. There's been a few resources I talked about here. Some of them, my 10-point checklist for blogs posts. I will put those 10 points in the show notes where you can read them there. And there will be a link to that wherever you're listening into the podcast. And Jules, I'm going to give you a little moment on your soapbox here. If you could remind everybody how they can find you online, then I will put that into the notes as well.
Absolutely. My website is juleswellnessjournals.com. You can also find me in Facebook, Jules Wellness Journals.
And we will link to Jules' contact information there as well. And she also probably should have mentioned that if you want to find her latest journal, the one that I've been talking about, it's called Breathe. It's a 90-day mental health wellness journal. Mm-hmm. And I will put a link to that where you can find it on her website, but also on Amazon. So if you want to go buy that, then you can get your own copy. It's I love it. It feels great. I love the look and the layout of it. And it's got some awesome prompts in there to help you, especially if you were somebody that is not used to journaling and not sure on how to do it. So she's got some good info at the beginning on how to make the best use of it.
And just one quick mention is that I do have some journals here in my apartment now. So if people are in the HRM area and listening to this, they can reach out to me and I will get them a journal at a much better price because Amazon is not taking a chunk of my profits.
There you go. Supporting small business. And I should say, Jules and I are from the same area. So HRM means Halifax Regional Municipality. That's okay. I didn't mention earlier that you were from Halifax, but she is here from Nova Scotia. So if you're listening in, I'll put a link to her contact page on her website and you can reach out if you want to buy a copy and pick up one in person and not have to wait, especially as we are here just at the end. I think it's only a break on this Canada Post strike that's happening. Yeah. So our national Canadian postal system has been on strike for a while. It's come back for the holiday season, but I think that's only a temporary thing. So Jules can connect you up with that in person. And this will probably come out in the new year, Jules. So that's okay. That's still a possibility in the new year as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks again, Jules. And for those listening in, if you want to book your own free marketing review with me, simply visit pepperitmarketing.com/review, enter your info, tell me what you want to talk about, and we'll get you booked into a session. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes for this as well. And that's it for today. Thank you again, Jules, for your time. And thank you to everybody for listening in. And remember, if you want to thrive in practice or business, it's going to mean getting a little bit more strategic with your marketing content that you create, especially articles that can be used in so many more ways. Put them on your blog, use them in the newsletter, pull stuff out for social media. When you do that, you're going to spend less time marketing and more time doing business. And that's how you're going to thrive in business or practice. And I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.